How do scientists know mitochondria was originally a separate organism from humans? If it happened with mitochondria, could it have happened with other parts of our cellular anatomy? How do scientists know mitochondria was originally a separate organism from humans? Mitochondria have their own DNA, which looks a whole lot like a very reduced version of an alpha-proteobacterium's genome. They still retain some metabolic processes separate from the main cell's metabolism, as well, though they've offloaded a lot of their own metabolic processes to the main cell and passed the relevant genes to its nucleus instead. If it happened with mitochondria, could it have happened with other parts of our cellular anatomy? Potentially. Another apparent case of endosymbiosis creating an organelle is the chloroplasts inside plant cells, which look like a reduced version of a cyanobacterium. There are likely other examples of similar things elsewhere. Here's the evidence that indicates us that mitochondria most likely were an organism of their own: double membrane. Most organelles have only one membrane. The presence of a second membrane suggests a membrane of its own. Circular DNA. The DNA forms a loop. The only other organisms that we know about that have their DNA as a loop are bacteria, suggesting that they must share a common origin. Reproduction by fission. Mitochondria reproduce by the same method that bacteria do. The cell doesn't have DNA that can create new mitochondria, it must come from a parent mitochondria. All of this tells us that this organelle, unlike the rest in the cell, behaves in a different way. Most of the organelles have a single membrane, the one formed by the cell itself. They don't have DNA at all, except the nucleus, and they are produced by the cell, instead of reproducing themselves. The leading theory is that a long time ago an eukaryote cell with nucleus, engulfed a prokaryote cell without nucleus, but circular DNA, and through a complicated process, made it part of itself. Through evolution, the engulfed cell was incorporated into the eukaryote cell. In response, the engulfed cell offloads the vast majority of its metabolism to the eukaryote cell. Corrections are welcome. I typed this while out from home, so I'm sure I might have forgotten something. Edit. Please check JQBR's comment for a relevant correction and the comment made by Dan Heidel. For further reading, I recommend this Science Communication article. One thing I'd add is that the mtDNA uses a different codon table than the rest of human DNA, which is extremely significant. Codon table translation is one of the most fundamental operations in biology, and the fact that one of the mtDNA codons is a bacterial one rather than a eukaryotic one is extremely unusual, that is almost impossible to explain except by endosymbiont theory. It would be like walking into the house where everyone spoke English and one person spoke Tibetan. It's far more likely that person wandered over from Tibet than an English speaker just having some speech idiosyncrasies that coincidentally perfectly matched Tibetan.